After a large acquisition, most founders would choose comfort. So what discomfort were you missing that pulled you back into entrepreneurship?
The day I got, very clear that I want to solve for this problem, I was not able to resist from not doing it. So the excitement about solving this problem is what triggered me that, why not? Let's do it again.
A very warm welcome to the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast, your go-to series for unfiltered conversations with entrepreneurs shaping the future of business. I'm Ritwika Gupta, and in this episode, we'll be talking phones, money, and sustainability. Joining me today is a second-time entrepreneur who's returned to building after a successful exit. What drew him back to starting all over again, and how is he challenging long-held ideas around ownership and aspiration in the Indian market? The focus today is on BytePay, and I'm joined by its founder, Jayant Jha, who's rethinking how Indians access and own premium tech through a subscription-led model. Jen, welcome to the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you for inviting. The pleasure is all mine. Thanks a lot.
So Jen, before we get to talking about BytePay, I want to know a little bit about your journey. Now you started and exited Yantra, and I want to know, how has the entrepreneurship landscape evolved over the years? What is different in starting BytePay today, say, versus starting Yantra, many years ago that you did?
See, a couple of things, right? The ecosystem today is more mature, more evolved. When I started Yantra, both from my point of view and versus the ecosystem point of view, both were very different trajectories, right? So when I started Yantra, I was 23, right out of college, a couple of years of, working here and there with Wipro and then with a couple of other companies. Yeah. One fine day, sort of very passionately thinking that, I want to do something. Didn't had a sort of 5-year, 10-year view, or what is going to be the outcome of it, right?
Yeah.
You just wanted to do something, so I started. Potentially, when we were thinking about Yantra, I didn't even thought that we will go out and raise money, because we come from a very traditional middle-class families, where in fact, which is the families won't even encourage you to go and borrow money from somebody, right? So that ecosystem was very different. I was raised in a very small town called MP. I'm in Mahu in Madhya Pradesh, and then I went for schooling in Sainik School, so all tier 2, tier 3. So, didn't have that kind of exposure, etc. But the father, those days, he was posted in Delhi, and that's how I landed there. Did my graduation, saw how things were evolving, and so more passionate that I wanted to do something without thinking about the pros and cons, without knowing the playbook of funding, etc.
Right.
We just jumped in because we saw a problem, and that's what we wanted to solve, me and my co-founders, right? So we're very excited about it. That's how it started. When obviously Yantra was hell of a journey, 9 years of running it, then selling it to Flipkart, finally spending 3 more years there.
Yeah. And
then Flipkart obviously gave me a good enough runway, 3 years to understand how the consumer ecosystem in the country is evolving. That's the largest e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
Potentially anybody and everybody that you ask in the country today, they would have shopped on Flipkart or they will shop on Flipkart.
Sure.
Right? It's just a very different sort of story. So when I started BytePay, the difference was that one is as an individual, you are more mature, you understand, you know the playbook, you are able to identify the problem much more better. And hence the execution changes, right? Both from the resource gathering standpoint, that how do you go and approach the investors to gather money? And see, investors obviously come a little later in the picture, but when you are actually evaluating the idea, right? The specs that you look at the problem with, you're able to go a lot deeper into it. So that gives you a very clear understanding of the problem, a very clear execution timeline, right? So for instance, let's say when I launched Yantra, right? The first year we did approximately, say, 1.25 crores in sales. I'm talking about way back in 2013-14. That was our annualized revenue. Over here, this is something that we could do in weeks, right, for 8 years. So obviously, it's a function of multiple things, not only about our knowledge, but as a consumer ecosystem has also evolved. Go back 2013, you had very limited financing options. You had the consumer internet was trying to pick it up, but now it is a matured ecosystem. But see, I think the key difference is that as an individual, you understand the playbook a lot better. The resources are available at you. If you are really working towards it, you will find it one way or the other. So I think that's the fundamental difference, yeah.
But after a large acquisition, most founders would choose comfort. So what discomfort were you missing that pulled you back into entrepreneurship?
I feel that, entrepreneurship is very addictive. It's really addictive. And not in the terms of that, you really just want to do something for the sake of doing it. It's just that if you are excited about a problem that you want to solve, right? So then you don't think about anything else, and you are so much deeper in love with that problem that you would want to solve. So that's what exactly happened with me. And you're not the first person who has asked this question to me. In fact, my wife, my parents, that you spent 12 years, why again, right? You can sort of, you have, made decent money. You can live, the life that you want to live. Plus, you have a well-settled job. Why do you want to do this? So the way I look at it is that the day I got, very clear that I want to solve for this problem, I was not able to resist from not doing it, right? So the excitement about solving this problem is what triggered me that, why not? Let's do it again.
Absolutely. So tell us about BytePay. On the surface, it is about phones, but what is the deep story? What is the real story down there?
So see, I'll take a step back and tell you that why I thought about BytePay, right? So see, today, when you look at, for example, let's take one step back. You and me possibly were the consumers who went online and bought for the first time, right? Yeah. Possibly we were the first guys who got credit cards in our hands for the very first time, right? So we have seen that curve that, getting the credit access, shopping online. This was the first generation. Like, it all started in 2006, 2007, possibly when I was completing my 12th standard back then. So the next decade of consumption is going to be very different. And I'll tell you a few trend lines that I was able to spot. See, what we keep calling Gen Z in every conversation, any podcast you see, everywhere you see that, right? But if you go to the core of it, right, and to identify the consumer behavior that they sort of, you are able to identify into their behavior, what you will realize is that they're very trend driven, right? So something gets into trend and, everybody would want to latch onto it, they would want to buy, etc. What I believe is that, see, this generation is now entering the workforce. Affordability for them does not exist at any way, right? So affordability is largely solved for Gen X and Gen M at best, right? For this generation, it is not yet solved. Now see, most of the platforms, what they have done is that curation is solved. So if you want to buy something, it's available.
Right.
You go to hundreds of platforms where it is available. But how do you afford being trendy? What will drive that trend, right? That is the missing link that I believe that exists, right? Second is, India is completely about middle class, right? If you see, middle class is the heart of the entire Indian sort of, consumer consumption that happens, right? Affordability itself is a very big challenge for this particular audience. So that is when I started to think about it, that how do I solve? So I'll give you a few examples. For example, let's say, every time you would want to buy something expensive, the first thing that hits your head is that, it's this money. So for example, you want to buy an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
When 17 Pro was launched or 17 was launched, the first thing that comes in your mind is that, hey, it's 1.3 lakhs for a Pro, or 1,30,000 for a Pro, or say 80,000, 85,000 rupees for a base model, right? Now, what happens is that, see, that one is that it delays your purchase because you're thinking that I have to spend 85,000 rupees. And see, while we can obviously, there are EMI options available that you can break and pay, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to pay.
Right.
See, while running Yantra, one thing that I realized is that there is a difference in how a product life cycle moves versus the consumer consumption cycle. So for instance, let's say that a product life cycle would, let's talk about iPhone only, right? An iPhone would go for around 6, 7, 8 years. But as a primary consumer, how much time do you spend using it? At best, 24 months, 36 months, right? You don't go beyond that, right? And that too, the lag in 24 to 36 is largely because you're not ready for the next expense to come in, right?
Right.
So at Yantra, we built this beautiful business that was able to sort of predict the product life cycle, right? So for example, our systems were able to predict that if something is launched today, any electronics is launched today, over a period of 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, what would be the device value? So while we were thinking about the problem statement that how do we solve affordability for this generation, what very clearly came up is that if you are able to create a financing mechanism that enables consumers to only pay for what they are using, you're talking about a massive sort of affordability lever. So for example, let's say that in BytePay context, right? So what we understood was that, look, if you're buying an iPhone 17, your EMI would be pretty much closer to say 7,500 to 8,000 rupees a month, right? Whereas if you go to BytePay today, the monthly that you pay to get to an Apple 17 is only 3,500 rupees, 35 to 3,800 depending upon what product mechanism you are selecting. So it's about reducing your affordability, or let's say access, at a 50% lesser cost. Right. So see, and the reason why we picked up smartphone as a first category to get into is because the phone is something that gives you access to everything in life today. You are on your phone for your content, you're on your phone for your shopping, you want to book your travel, you are there. So phone is a gateway to everything that you do today. So that's what we wanted to solve first. However, the way I look at BytePay is think of BytePay as a platform that gives you access to anything premium, anything luxury at the lowest possible entry point, right?
Sure.
So the idea is that can we create a credit-led commerce for the next generation of consumption that will happen in the country?
Right.
So that's how we are brick by brick building BytePay.
Right, and I mean, you just explained to us very beautifully why you chose the subscription, structure, as opposed to EMI models, right? But tell me, when it comes to large ticket consumer tech, do you think ownership is going to soon become obsolete, or we still have a while before we get there?
I think I would not say that it is going to be obsolete. It's changing. It's evolving is what I would say. Because see, this generation which is coming up, as next generation of shoppers today, they're very experience focused.
Yeah.
They would not worry that if the product is mine or not, right? So see, so while we had a lot of thinking around the same point that, ownership versus, renting, people confuse that. So what our model, the way it works is that you own it from day one, and you have an option to upgrade. So it's like, you're subscribing something today, it's your product. At some point of time, without any friction, you can just give this back and get a new one. And if you want to own, eventually the product is yours, right? So that gets taken care of. But see, coming to your question, that will it become obsolete? I would not say that we have reached that inflection point where the ownership completely going out of order.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely there is a change in that direction where consumers are more focused on experience than towards buying and keeping it themselves.
But tell me something, a phone is something that is so personal. How do you convince your consumer then, that, to not own it, and to rent it?
So see, I'll tell you the way our model works, right? See, we are not saying that when you are subscribing from BytePay, and by design, the way the product is designed is that the product is yours, right? See, smartphone is a product that you anyways change. Maybe some people change in a year time, maybe in 2 years, or maybe in 3 years, but the change is evident. It will happen, right? So exactly our model is designed keeping this principle in place.
Okay.
So you get a subscription, you get a product. The product is yours from day zero. It will be similar to what, let's say, you would do when you are changing it. I'll tell you, we have taken 10 steps ahead and solved for many problems. For example, in our model, one is that, the product comes with a complete physical damage protection. So in case if you break it, it's covered. You can go to the brand center and get it fixed. So there is no pain in the ownership journey. The day you want to change it, right? That day, we will completely wipe up your data. So you are 100% secure that way. First of all, and we do it right in front of the consumer. So at your home, you have a choice to completely wipe out your phone, and we will help you with that. We have third-party tools that can guarantee that your data is completely wiped out. Mm-hmm. And it is much more better that, let's say today, what happens is that as a consumer, either you are selling it to a retail offline store, or you are maybe giving it to some online platforms, right? But see, online platforms, maybe they are doing their bit to control everything. But when you sell to unidentified parties, you really don't know what is happening to your phone. Over here, it is much more controlled ecosystem.
Right.
Where we come and collect your phone, we help you wipe out your data, and we responsibly dispose it. So what it means is that we would take care of the product, refurbish it, whatever needs to get added, and pass it on to the next consumer. So we have the thread, right? How the product is being consumed. So I would say that as consumers, they should feel more confident on a platform like ours compared to disposing it in any gray market.
So damage protection, upgrades, they sound great for the end user, but as a business, are these sustainable at scale?
It's a very interesting question, right? And especially very early in our journey where most of the cost, as an organization, we are spending money in acquiring customers. We are spending money in facilitating all of these things. See, the way I look at it as a business owner is that, for me, the customer comes first, right? From customer first thinking that, what are we offering? We should offer complete peace of mind, pain-free experience, so there is no difficulty while you're owning the product. See, as far as economically whether it is sustainable or not, that is a question that obviously we can solve it at a later date. See, as a business, if I can own my consumers, there are more avenues to monetize, right?
Right.
So maybe like, today, like I said, that it will not be about, phones anymore. Phones is a starting point for us. We will go into lifestyle products, we'll go into accessories, we'll go into multiple other things. So the platform today, potentially we are solving for, consumer trust, investing into, products and categories that will help consumers, like us more, right, than anything else. So that way, maybe today, yes, we are heavily investing into it, but we believe that that's the right thing to do.
So let's talk a little bit about your pricing strategy. How do you price fairly, usage fairly in a market that has such diverse income groups? What's the idea behind that?
See, today, for example, let's say that, let's classify people into multiple groups, right? You have people who are consuming flagship products today, potentially, let's say in Apple, Samsung, right? Then consumers, and I'm largely talking about the BytePay consumer context today, right? It may evolve over a period of time. But let's say that you have consumer segment who are consuming Apple, Samsung, which is flagship. Then you have a consumer subset that is into mass premium, we call it, right? Which is your Oppos and Vivos and OnePluses of the world. And then you have a mass market. See, our product is not tailored for mass market today. Because see, for mass, there are many organizations, they have already solved that, right? So we don't believe that our play is there. See, what we believe is that we can help you upgrade at the same price. So for example, if you are buying a product for 30,000-40,000 rupees, your monthly outflow in terms of EMI could be said 3,000 rupees, right? At the same price, we are helping you upgrade to the next level. So that's how we are thinking about it today. Maybe over a period of time, we see more avenues, more problems that we can solve for the mass market. We'll actually tailor our product to that. But see, our going in assumption is very clear that you define consumers for what you define a product that enables consumers to pay for what they are consuming and focus on, let's say, people who are very aspirational, they are wanting to upgrade, right? So for instance, let's say that today a 25-year-old in Bandra possibly would be thinking and following the same set of, celebrities or lifestyle influencers who, let's say somebody sitting in Bhopal or Indore or let's say any other part of the country would be doing the same thing, right?
Right.
So for this segment, potentially a lot of things are solved, but for that, is it solved, right? Or let's say that people who are getting into their workforce, they've just started to earn money. They're very highly aspirational, they're experience driven, but the current ownership model is so redundant that they don't even get access, right? Yeah. So a program like ours actually solves for this consumer subset and cohorts today, right? So that's what our larger focus is. Having said that, see, let's say for 1,000, 2,000 rupees EMI structures, there are more than many financial instruments which are available for them to access. And we believe that we should be able to add significant value to any sort of proposition that we are building. That is when, for us, it would start to make sense.
Jayant, what do you think is fundamentally broken in the way India owns technology today?
First thing is that the entry barrier, right? So technology also is available at multiple price points, etc., etc. But see, for certain products, our dependency is so high, right? For example, phones as a category, we spend from the time we wake up and by the time we sleep, phone is always in our hand, right? Yeah. So access to that. So I'll tell you from our Yantra days, right? The core goal at Yantra was to give access to people who are not able to afford smartphones, right? So let's say our entry point in refurbished phones were approximately 5,500 rupees, and it will go on from there. And Yantra had a massive tier 3, tier 4 market presence, right? So where we were sort of, giving access to them. But see, that is the entry point, right? Now, if somebody can only spend 5,000 rupees, you cannot give him a quality product, right? So that is when refurbished starts to make sense. And one of the reasons what triggered me to sort of, start this was the same, the entry barrier, right? Yeah. That if you want an Apple, you need a lakh in India. Not a lot of people have that, right? So, but see, aspiration definitely exists. So is there a way to define a product solution that can cater to this aspiration without being a strain on the wallet, right? So that is when our solution sort of, comes in. So what I believe is that for especially the next generation of consumption or people where the affordability is yet to be solved, for that particular generation, the experience-driven consumption will slowly start to peak. So let's say we are in 26 today. By the time you get to 30, you would see a larger portion of consumption shifting towards, experience-led consumption.
So if BytePay succeeds at scale, which I'm sure it will, how do you think it will change the way Indians today view aspiration and affordability?
See, we're very clear on that principle today. That see, we want to be a platform that gives you access to anything aspirational. It's not only phones, when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to, say, anything that you are consuming in terms of electronics, maybe travel will be too, we're not sort of focused on that. But let's say that, if you want to buy a sneaker which is 10,000 rupees, can I still give you an access, right? May not be through a subscription model, but through something else. So at the core of it, we would continue to solve for access and affordability across different product categories, right? That's what we would want to be. So from where we stand today, in next 5 years, BytePay will emerge as a platform that will give you access to any aspirational product that you would want to access in the country today across multiple categories. That's what we are focused on, and hence our focus on creating products that can be more inclusive in nature, products which are sort of have a life cycle value, so design products on that. So that sort of gives access to multiple different cohorts in the country. And we believe they are our consumers, and we should definitely go ahead and solve for them.
Absolutely. So let's talk money a little bit. I want to know, from the time you actually started Jayant Jha, how has your relationship with capital changed over the years? And especially for first-time founders, what should they know about money versus momentum?
See, I believe that money is a very important ingredient while you are building the business, right? Now, see, while building Jayant Jha, what the principle that I had, right? And obviously there are multiple business models that exist into different parts of the world that Jayant Jha was in. So what we believe is that we should do what is the right thing to do, right? See, chasing a momentum that is not going to sustain is something that I always discourage. And the question, this is the same question that I ask myself again and again, that, should you do it or should you not do it? And take a step back and see that is there an alternate way to do something like this, right? So I'll tell you from while Jayant Jha was a very capital efficient business, we raised 1/10 of the capital and still build a very meaningful, successful business compared to our peers, not only in India but globally, and had the best unit economics in this category while we were building this business. So what I feel is that as long as you are doing the right thing, right, it becomes very easy to convince. It becomes very easy to sort of talk to people to get capital access, and the capital gets available in one way or the other, right? So I think as long as you are very clear on what you are building and you have very clear reasoning for that, I don't think getting the capital access is the problem, right? And see, we are in the ecosystem today where there are more than many VC funds and more than many incubators who are willing to sort of help the first-time founders, right? There are many initiatives, every day you would read about one thing or the other popping up. They are willing to sort of partner the first-time sort of founders and helping them, right? In fact, there are funds which are looking at people who are getting out of the college right now and starting to build. So I don't think that capital access is a problem. As long as you're able to define that what needs to be done and why it needs to be done, capital is available.
Now, BytePay also has institutional backing. So how did your pitch for BytePay differ from how you actually pitched for Jayant Jha?
So see, for me, the first thing that, for us, like the first 100 days or 90 days was more about doing the PMF right? Because see, while we were starting up, we believed that Indian consumers are more towards ownership, right? That they would want to own. So we wanted to test this out and see that how it plays. Though before sort of launching, I myself spoke to, between me and my team, we spoke to closer to 500 people differently, right? The co-working where we used to go, we used to randomly stop people and ask them questions. Plus, into our friends and family network, we spoke to at least 500 people to get their preference of how they are looking at it and which is the right consumer cohort for us will be. So we were very convinced that it will work. But see, what happens is when you are researching and when the rubber hits the road, the story may be very different, right? So we said that let's do a PMF first. So for me, it was like very simple. Investors who backed Jayant Jha, people who have known, it was a very easy conversation that, hey, you know what, this opportunity looks much more bigger, and less, I would want to sort of explore that. And so, it was a very easier conversation, I would say. And I am extremely thankful to people who back you because, they take that plunge on you that, okay, fine, if you are wanting to do something, there's something meaningful in it, right? Thankful to our investors, backers. So that was it. We were able to raise a round very quickly to sort of do our PMF. And the traction that we have seen is unimaginable, BytePay gets over closer to more than 500,000 visitors on the website in the 90 days of launch, right? And with very minimal sort of marketing spends. So we believe that there is a lot of demand for aspirational products, and if you are able to create a financing instrument that gives access, something like this consumers were waiting to sort of jump on for. So we have seen very meaningful traction in the first 90, 100 days. We see a very strong PMF. And we believe we are at an inflection point where slowly and gradually this will become the mainstream of consumption.
Right. So, I always ask my guests if there is a perfect pitch, but I want to ask you the opposite. For entrepreneurs who are watching the show today, who want to raise capital, who want to perhaps go to a bank and, get a loan and, present their case study, or, who just want to go to a reality show and, raise capital there as well. What would your advice be for them in terms of what not to say in the room?
I don't think that there is a rule book here. See, I have always believed on 2-3 things. One is that you should have a plan, that why you want to raise money, and should be very clear on why you are raising, where are you going to sort of invest it with, very logically, right? Mm-hmm. And I also mentor a few people who are trying to sort of do things. Most of the time, you just want to raise capital for the sake of raising it. I don't think that's the right approach. So the approach is very clear that as long as you have a plan and you believe that the capital is going to be convenient for those 3 things, it sort of helps. Secondly, see, with investors, one thing, I personally believe what works is that honesty, right? So see, on day 0 when you are starting up, you will not have an answer. So for example, if we were meeting in August and you would have asked me that, how BytePay is going to be in next 5 years, possibly I would not have answered, and I would have simply told you that, we are yet to experiment and get to the right outcome, right?
Right.
So being honest of what you feel, one question is that, how you feel about it and, what you think this will be. Second is that the reality of it, right? So when you start to execute, you will see real problems. And in more than many cases, after building Yantra for 12 years, most of the time the planning that you do on an Excel sheet, it's way, way different than what in reality what happens, right? So, what I believe is that if you're raising for early stage, you got to be very honest. You got to be honest to yourself and the people that you are dealing with. Tell them that, look, hey, this is what I feel.
Yeah.
And if it works out, this is what it is going to be. And then people on the other side also understand, right? On day 0, if you have an answer to everything, then possibly by assumption would be that those are wrong answers, right? So my advice is very clear that you should not hide. You should be very clear about what you feel about the businesses. And you should do what is the right thing for the business to do is. Yeah, shouldn't get carried away that, hey, this company is building into this space and let me do the same thing. It does not work like that, right?
So tell me, how do you want BytePay to be remembered as, 10 years from now?
See, it's a very difficult question today because, see, like I said, it's been like barely 4 months in business, right? A lot of the things would evolve for us, right? So we have done one PMF, right? But there are multiple other experiments that we still want to do, right? And most of the time, what you are solving for is for the consumers, right? How they are approaching it, how they are perceiving it, what is their behavior, right?
Yeah.
So establishing that today, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. But see, I'll tell you what is for us, what is the core of the business, right? Yeah. And we believe people would remember us for that. So we believe that we are actually at the core of it, we are solving for affordability and access. And in anything and everything that we do, this will remain the core of it. Until something new discovery happens and we believe that this is not the right thing to do for us. Today, we are very convinced that solving for affordability in a country like in our country is a very big opportunity. Solve affordability, give access, cater to aspiration. These are some of the ABC, if you ask me, in my priority list, how I would want to build this business, right? And of course, let's say, we're 4 months in business now. In 4 years, the things will be very, very different.
Well, all the very best to you, more power to you, and thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It was really great talking to you.
Thank you. Before we wrap up today's episode, here's a quick look at our LOT cheat sheet, a quick rundown of the top takeaways from today's episode. And that's a wrap of today's episode of the Leaders of Tomorrow Vodcast. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations and keep chasing those big dreams. Until next time, this is Ritwika Gupta signing off.